In the past couple of minutes, things have really ramped up here in Minneapolis' Hawthorne neighborhood. Just seconds ago, these ICE agents just deployed chemical irritant. They also were deploying pepper balls on the ground. People have been trying to flush their eyes with water as they have been sprayed with tear gas. This line of federal agents and protesters has moved back here. Now you can see this line here. These are all ICE officers. Some have actual guns on them. Some just have guns that are shooting pepper balls. And this crowd of protesters has grown quite significantly in the past 10 to 15 minutes since we've been here. First, I would say there was just a couple of dozen protesters who were blowing their whistles. And what those whistles do, Julie, is they alert the neighbors that there is an ICE presence here. Now that crowd, I would say, is to about 50 to 75 protesters, if not more, who are incredibly angry and agitated with these ICE officers. We still have no confirmed information about what happened here, besides reports from MPD that there was an ICE-involved shooting. We have protesters here who are throwing ice and snowballs at these federal agents, and those federal agents in return are then spraying those pepper balls on the ground, which make you cough and kind of tear up. And they've also been spraying pepper spray into the eyes of protesters. So things are getting quite heated here, Julie. You can see protesters throwing items back at these federal agents as the perimeter was secure at one point. Protesters weren't moving, and then that perimeter was broken, and now it has moved up the street here. And I apologize for my coughing, Julie, as these pepper balls spread throughout the air. But this situation really shows no signs of slowing down right now, as we're still waiting for any confirmed information about what happened here this evening. Ice and snow. There you go. There are some more flashbangs, Julie, right there, that then release a chemical irritant into the air. And those protesters, in return, try to throw those flashbangs back at the ICE agents. It looks like these ICE agents are really trying to take control of the perimeter here again, Julie. So we're going to keep backing up and keep a safe distance from everything. In terms of this perimeter and who is setting off these flashbangs and spraying these pepper balls, it is all federal agents. The ICE agents then backed up a little bit, and that's when that perimeter was broken. If our photographer can show you now as we get into the street here, this was the original perimeter that these ICE agents set up, this line of law enforcement. So they seem to have taken back that line, but when things escalated was when that line got pushed back and these protesters started walking down the street and continued to get into the faces of these ICE agents. But now it is a ton of flashbangs and chemical irritants that are being deployed by these ICE agents to try to push the protesters back. I want to show you the line of federal agents behind me, and this is noteworthy because when we got here on scene around 8, this line of now a couple dozen federal agents was only about 5 or 6 federal agents. The crowd only continues to grow. There was a couple dozen protesters here when we arrived on scene about 30 to 45 minutes ago. Now I would say there's at least 100, if not more, protesters that are here. And you may hear in the background, you hear these whistles, and these protesters keep blowing these whistles. And what their intention is with doing that is to alert others in the neighborhood that ICE is here and that there is ICE activity going on. And as you just mentioned, Julie, the AP reporting that one man was shot in the leg. I'm sure as word of that gets out, that more protesters will start to come to the scene. I want to kind of take people back to what we have seen in the 45 minutes we have been here. We saw an ambulance leave the scene right when we got here, and that was when there was only a couple dozen protesters. But that group has to continue to grow as, here we go, Julie, more chemical irritant being deployed, and there are some flashbangs, Julie.
All right, so we're going to let you
disperse the crowd here. These are the tear gas canisters that law enforcement and those federal agents are deploying to try to disperse the crowds. This is what we were hit with just a few minutes ago. Behind me, though, Julie, we now have state officials, that state patrol in those lime green vests, and then these are also Minneapolis police officers who are trying to hold the scene here and hold the line. I believe that the federal agents, the ICE agents, are just a block down. They have another perimeter there. I want to take viewers quickly through what we have seen throughout the night. We got here at around 8 p.m. And there was a couple dozen protesters and about 5 or 6 ICE agents that were clashing, yelling at each other, etc. Over time, that crowd has continued to grow to hundreds of protesters, and that line of federal agents has continued to grow. We're going to back up a little bit here, Julie, to make sure we don't get hit with any chemical irritant. But what we have been seeing, Julie, is continual clashes between federal agents and between the protesters. And what will happen is those federal agents will deploy a chemical irritant, whether that be tear gas or a pepper bomb. The protesters will back up, and then a couple minutes later, they will come back up and start clashing with those federal agents. We were seeing protesters throwing snow and ice at those federal agents. There's a development right now. It appears that MPD is leaving the scene. I'm going to have my photographer Tyler zoom in here. Yep, here we go. It appears MPD and State Patrol is backing up here. We saw someone just throw a water bottle into the air. Of course, we're not sure where eventually MPD or State Patrol is ultimately going to go. We just saw another protester throw ice chunks, and there we go. Here, flashbangs, Julie. We're going to back up here, but remain safe. But they are deploying the tear gas and flashbangs as MPD and State Patrol is trying to back up and clear the scene, and they're deploying that chemical irritant to, of course, we apologize for that profanity there, Julie, but they're deploying that chemical irritant to hey, no trouble. Hey, sorry, we just had a protester show us. We're all good though. They just deployed that chemical irritant to try to disperse the crowd as MPD and federal and State Patrol, was backing away from the scene. And what we have seen, including at the situation a week ago when Renee Good was killed, is once those law enforcement officers leave, that tends to, the situation then tends to die down, and that's exactly what we saw here. We saw those MPD officers and those State Patrol officers leave the scene. They deployed a chemical irritant so they could safely leave and keep the protesters back, and then once that happened, a lot of these protesters began to leave. I want to show you some of the destruction that is out here. We believe that this is a federal vehicle because you can see the police lights here and also these police light bar here and these plates, out-of-state plates from Virginia. But this is what protesters did to this federal vehicle. They spray painted it. Every single window has been busted open. Things have been stolen out of the car. You can see things strewn across the street. We have clothes, deodorant, Cliff Bars. This is the first time, Julie, we have seen any destruction from tonight, but protesters completely dismantled what appears to be the vehicle of a federal agent, and they even spray painted inside the hood of the car here.